Oh, here, can we change it?
All right, good morning, or good afternoon, or maybe even good evening. It feels like it's all mixed into one lately these days, but it's good to see everybody. Welcome to our returning to campus presentation. I would ask that everybody go ahead and put your microphones on mute, please, if you could. Just keep your microphones on mute. We are going to keep the chat room open. If you do have questions, please go ahead and use the chat room to put any questions related to tonight's topic, or even if it's not related to tonight's topic, go ahead and you can put questions in that chat room. Mr. Lupa will be monitoring that room, and we'll stop every once in a while and be able to answer those questions for you. The goal tonight is really simply to give you some updates on what exactly, two things, really, what the senior year at PTECH consists of, and what it looks like from a college standpoint, as students will be on, or they're not going to be setting foot on our city campus. But then also to give some updates as it relates to the COVID requirements and procedures will be at OCC for make sure that all students are comfortable with those situations. So by the end of tonight, you should have a pretty good idea and clear understanding of what we are going to be looking at moving forward. I do want to point out to you, as always, we have a team of individuals that are here to support students and to support parents as they work through their educational experience here at PTECH. Obviously, Mr. Heffron here. We have Ms. Preston, who is our PTECH liaison. We have Mara Metzgar, who is our OCC liaison. We have Ms. Ruiz. This year we will have Mr. Plants, and we will have Mr. Chamberlain as well, who are going to be down at campus at various points to provide support. The reason why I bring that up is because you will see that there's a theme in tonight's presentation, which is all about communication, communication, and communication. And what I mean by that is that some of the great things that we saw from cohort 2 last year was the growth and the ability for students to take on responsibility and be able to communicate to the adults in the program about various concerns and needs. And we will continue to expect that continues from our students as we move forward. Not only because at OCC, the professors expect that communication from the student, but also this is really a point in your ability to get through the program where we really now start to see the big changes happen. And what I mean by that is this is really the moment where we really start to sort of make a transition from that high school to that full college sort of experience. Yes, students at PTECH this year in cohort 2 will be taking high school courses to complete their high school graduation requirements, but they are few. And the majority of the time and the majority of the efforts this year will be placed into OCC components as the students make further transitions and further development and growth into reaching their diploma requirements. So this is an exciting year, and I want to first off just recognize all the efforts and work of the students that are here. I will tell you that when you think about where this program is and the students that are involved, you have to always kind of pinch yourself and remind yourself kind of where students are at and their ability to be able to handle the things that we throw at them. For high school seniors, obviously there's always the expectation that there's a sign of maturity and growth at that year, but we always sort of pressed on that a little bit earlier. And so, we really start to see some things happen this year with students and their performance, not only in taking ownership of their academics, but really as they start to sort of see a pathway to completion of this program. I will let you know that, once you finish up your requirements that are in place for you based on our scope and sequence this year, many of you are really going to be looking at a 1.5-year situation where, really the end is in sight. And that is a super exciting thing, not only for high school graduation. All of you have been working hard to get to that point, and we expect 100% of you to be able to graduate from this cohort in June. But more importantly, you'll start to see the end in sight in terms of your college diploma, which is just an unbelievable thing when you think about what your age is and where you've, where you've sort of gone through. So with that said, let's get right to the information because there's a lot to get through, and I want to make sure that we don't take too much time for you here this evening. So both at OCC and both with PTECH, I think the thing that we like to always say here is we're excited to welcome you guys back, but we want to make sure that we're doing it safely. This is something that OCC has done an excellent job, and Mara has and her team have worked very hard to be able to communicate to us and work with us on developing a schedule this year in which students are really they're taking advantage of the requirements that are needed for them to be able to demonstrate the skills necessary to continue to work on their diploma requirements. But also the college has worked with us to make sure that we are not putting students on campus for any unnecessary reasons. That, we want to make sure that students are given opportunities to take advantage of the resources that are there for them, but also doing so in an environment in which we all have to sort of be aware of the safety concerns of any situation that involves having students on campus at any point. So what I'm going to do first is just walk through some of the major components that OCC has put in place to ensure the safety of all students that will be on campus this year. First off, just a recognition that all learning spaces at OCC have been measured to determine the maximum allowed density. And that kind of goes for any educational room that you will be in this year. That means that classrooms that used to fit 20, 25 students are not going to be able to do that this year. They are going to have shorter numbers of students in the classroom. Students, you guys will experience classes that are going to not be as large as you have in the past. I think there are advantages to that, and I think you'll take advantage of being able to interact with your professors as well as the other students in a socially safe manner. But I think you'll be able to get more out of that classroom experience as a result of that. One of the things that makes our program unique in the MET or ELT program is that there's a heck of a lot of labs. And labs are difficult because as much as you try to replicate something in an online remote fashion, you can't. Oftentimes. And so, especially with the programs and the skills that you students are experiencing, you all know it's very difficult to be able to be in an MET program and not have some in-person interaction. So the college has recognized that and put together a very solid plan when it comes to making sure that students' labs, courses that have labs attached to them, will be done in an in-person fashion, and done so students to be able to maximize the time that they are actually there in the lab and be able to learn what they need to do to take home with them if they have a remote portion of the class. And what I mean by that is that OCC has really developed three sort of versions of how classes will be conducted this year. The first version is what we refer to as high flex. Which is sort of what you might consider a hybrid version to be, which is going to be a component where students have an in-person experience as well as a remote learning setting. That is important because we know that there are times that lectures are conducted that you have experienced students in the classroom that we know that can be conducted over the internet and does not require for you to be in campus, to be sitting in a room listening to a lecture component. However, there's also times that we know that you are going to experience lab situations where you do need to be in person. And the majority of all students that are in cohort 2 are going to have this high flex experience, at least for one of their courses. So once again, this high flex version is a hybrid where students, if they're scheduled to have, for example, if class is scheduled to meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the professors are working with us. Mara is working with us on establishing a schedule that would allow them to go down to campus to be in person for that particular class, maybe once a week for the lab portion, while the remaining portions of that class would be done in a remote setting. So that's hybrid or high flex That's the version that they're using, the word that they're using for that component. The other two versions of classes are remote. There's two versions of remote. There's a traditional online course where there's really no live interaction with a professor. Your interaction is based solely on emails or responses to discussion posts on Blackboard. You know, there's no live teacher who's teaching something in front of you at a certain time of the day. That would be what we call traditional, whereas the third version of this sort of different classes being offered would be a remote, which is where a student would be scheduled in their class with a live instructor who would be saying, you know, at 1 o'clock you meet online, you go to this social media or media platform, and you actually see your teacher live, they see you, and there's interaction verbally in a classroom. These three versions that have been put together, we've been working with OCC to try to identify what is the best options, what is the best learning experience for each class. We know that sometimes a English class can be done in a certain setting, but a ELT class cannot be done in that same setting. So, you know, we've been working with the college, and they've been identifying through their professors how they think the classes need to be conducted, and also making sure that students are limited in the amount of time that they are down at campus to ensure that there is no unnecessary gathering of students in safety situations. So with that, and I'll get to it in a little bit, explain to you how you'll recognize what your class is actually students is going to look like. If it's going to be a high flex, if it's going to be a complete online, traditional online course, or if it's going to be a remote course that will involve a live instructor who will be teaching the class. The other thing that is important to know is that students will be expected to have gone through screening before they arrive on campus. The screening will occur with the student's transportation. And what we mean by that is that when a student boards a district school bus, they will need to undergo screening that the district is already providing before they let you on that school bus. Screening will consist of a temperature check. It will consist of a series of questions, and those procedures are established by each individual school district of what that screening looks like. However, OCC has an additional screening for all, or not additional, they have a screening for all students who arrive on campus. However, because students are undergoing screening already in order to get on a bus, you know, there isn't going to be a necessarily need to have them get screened again before they walk in to their building. So what's going to happen is we have worked with OCC to basically allow students to be able to get screened before they get on their bus by their home district. And once they are on the bus, they will have met the screening requirements for them to enter OCC's campus. Now, if you are a student whose parent might drive you down one day and drop you off, you will have to undergo through the screening that they have set up, and they only use one entrance to campus, and there's a checkpoint there for you to do, and once again, answer questions and have your temperature checked. So for students, once again, who enter campus, when they do pass the screening that allows them to enter the school, they will be awarded, or they'll be given a color band, and there's going to be different bands for different days, different colors for different days. The students will be given a band which they are to wear at all times, which will give them access to their school buildings. And those bands are worn by all students, not just all students that have undergone screening and passed and given permission to enter the campus facilities. As I mentioned, or something that is obviously going to be happening not only here at OCC, but also with City, is the consistent disinfection and daily cleaning rounds that are happening both in all classrooms and common campus areas. You will notice that not all areas that students are used to experiencing are going to be open. For example, if there's any areas that normally allowed for students to congregate in certain areas, those places have been temporarily closed until further notice. So for example, the cafeteria situation, if you want food to purchase this year from the cafeteria, you will go in and essentially be picking up a box lunch, and then you'll be exiting that area and be encouraged to have lunch in many of the open spaces, practicing appropriate social distancing when having lunch. Another example would be, another example would be the Laser Lounge. Obviously, that's going to be closed temporarily until requirements are lifted in regards to social gatherings of that sort. So you'll notice that there are certain things that are not open as they adjust to sort of the experiences that we are facing right now. You will find that there is signage on certain doors that allow you to go in and sit out another door. Students, you guys have most likely used to seeing this around your town, around your community and stores. So you will just be expected, just like every other student at OCC, to go forward and practice those procedures in place. Additionally, students will be expected to wear face masks. This are face coverings. So this is something that, once again, is getting practiced not only at OCC, but at high schools across the county. But students will be expected to wear face coverings. Now, in situations in the classrooms, you might be at certain times when certain distances are allowed. You may see a professor say it's okay to do this and take it off, or they may give you face mask breaks or anything like that, face covering breaks. But just to be very clear, the expectation is that all students, when on campus, are to be wearing face coverings. Now, students can bring their own face coverings as long as it's appropriate and covers their mouth and their nose, or OCC will be providing face coverings as well to students. To all students to have extra face coverings will be in Mayor's office for you if you forget or need any of those as you move through. So once again, that'll be something that is expected, and people will be asking you if you are not wearing them in situations that you need to put them on, and it will be expected that you follow those procedures, or they will ask you to leave if you can't follow through with those. So just to be aware, once again, that's another element of expectations when you're on campus, to be wearing those coverings. And finally, the last piece that I want to just cover for OCC before I stop and answer any questions here is the calendar. And so what's going to happen this year is that when students go to break for Thanksgiving, which is November 24th, I believe is a Tuesday, I want to say, is the last day of instruction prior to Thanksgiving break. Once students go to Thanksgiving break, they will no longer be permitted back on campus for any in-person classes till the end of the semester. So what I mean by that is if you are scheduled to go down to OCC on Tuesday, that's your day that you're going to be down there and you have your in-person classes there. Following Thanksgiving break for OCC, that in-person class, that session will now be remote. You will not be allowed to go back and have any in-person classes beyond the Thanksgiving break. And that's, once again, protocols that are put in place just as students return back to their homes for Thanksgiving break. They don't want students to be obviously coming back and bringing any possible, conditions with them. So once again, students will be following transportation down to OCC all the way through November break. And then after November break, there will be no transportation down to OCC because there will be no in-person classes at that point till the end of the semester. The end of the semester this year is December 12th, I believe. So those are just sort of, and once again, we're going to do two things today, just to let you know. We're going to send out this we're going to send out this recording of this presentation, and we're going to send also the PowerPoint to all students' email addresses. So all students will have a copy of both this recording as well as the PowerPoint to refer back to at their pleasure there as we move forward. All right, so Mr. Lupa, I'm just going to stop here before we talk about some other elements. What questions are in the chat room that I can address for folks right now?
Sure. So thanks for the questions that have come in so far, and please do continue to pose those questions as we move through tonight. Common question, especially as kids get up to OCC, will parents be able to drop off and pick up students from OCC?
Yep. Mara, I mean, I can answer that unless, Mara, you want to follow up. And so, yes. So
Oh,
That's okay. Nope, go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm working all the technology here, typing and stuff.
That's okay.
So yes, a student had a question about a parent pickup asking about how they get on campus. And yes, you easily could have answered it. There's a checkpoint. It's really high up in the driveway when you pull off the road. Everyone goes through it. It's really quick, but if there's a lineup of cars, it could take a while. After they say your temperature's fine and you give them your name and your phone number, you can drive through to anywhere you can drive on campus. Once you have your bracelet for the day, you keep it on. And if you leave campus and come back, you just hang your arm out the window and they wave you into another room. So it's actually quite easy to get on campus, but please, if you're driving there, plan to arrive earlier than you think. At certain times of day, there's a heavier line of cars than others.
And I just want to clarify, once again, that would be a parent driving a student. Based on your superintendents of each one of your districts, they do not permit students in 12th grade to drive down to OCC. So if a parent wanted to bring a student, they will be allowed to, but based on your district superintendent, it's not permitted for students in 12th grade at PTECH to be driving down to OCC on their own. Mr. Lupa, do you have another question related to anything that we've covered so far that I can answer?
We'll cover the questions that are here at this point. Another question was, is the library still open? It's definitely a place where a mass of students may tend to gather. Ms. Metzgar has indicated that the library resources will be available and the library is open, but we do want to have students take note of the signage that's in the library to limit congregating and just being in the library for those obviously purposes of studying and using the resources and computer labs and equipment and such of that nature. As far as any other questions at this point, the first day of OCC is August 31st. So you'll be notified by the end of this week through your email or a phone call of the days that you'll be attending OCC. So just know that the first day of possible classes at OCC is going to be August 31st, and we'll talk with you more about the exact days that you'll be attending there.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So one of the big things, students, as you guys recognized last year, and Ms. Ruiz and Mr. Plants and Mr. Chamberlain and all of your OCC advisory teachers hammered away at you, was communication is key. Right? So whether it be you weren't going to be able to make it to campus because of a snow day, because of a cancellation or a delay, communication to your professor was going to be the most important thing. And not only communication with your professor, but I hope that many of you have found that Ms. Ruiz and some of the efforts of Mr. Lupa and others helped out in certain situations for you as well. Ms. Metzgar is another individual that, once again, you will want to make sure you're communicating to, okay? And what I mean by that is that you figure out, just like with work or just like with anything else, you figure out who are the people, if you have a certain situation on, who are the key people that are going to be able to help you in that situation. So if Ms. Metzgar is somebody who has something related to what you're interested or what you need answers for, she would be the proper person. Or if Ms. Ruiz, you know, has some connection with something that you need, make sure you're doing that. Texting was something that I know a lot happened, and that was a great benefit. I want to commend all of you. We had an outstanding group of students who were sort of sharing information with Ms. Ruiz or Ms. Metzgar or one of us in regards to if, you know, if class got canceled, they would let us know and we would send that out to the other students. I just want to tell you, like, that is one of the most important and signs of maturity. It's the fact that we had students who really weren't just sort of looking out for themselves, but they were looking out for the collective whole. So you want to continue that communication. You know, every year we're going to have cohort 3 down there for the first time this year. You know, we're hammering away at communication with them. That's sort of a wake-up call. You guys have had a year under your belt to recognize the benefits of that. And I just want to point out to you that that is the most important thing. Ms. Ruiz, this is sort of your little area. Do you want to add anything to that besides a thumbs up here?
Yeah, hi everybody. As you guys know, I'm known for sending mass text messages and reminders about text your professor this, where are you this, reminders about class being closed. One of the biggest things I can tell you is transportation. If you know you're getting picked up by a parent or you're gonna get dropped off early by a parent or guardian because you have an appointment, you have to let me know. You have to let transportation know, or Ms. Preston at PTECH. And you, like, that's one of the most important things, because I don't know how many times I've already started my way home from OCC after 2 p.m. and I've gotten a call from a student or the bus driver themselves saying, where's so-and-so? And it's because there's a lack of communication. Then I have to drive back to OCC, because I've done it a couple times, because I get all concerned that we lost a student, and it was all because they failed to communicate this to somebody. So yeah, big important note is communication, emails, text messages. You can't send more than one email reminding me about you're getting picked up early or you're late to class and stuff like that.
Thank you, Ms. Ruiz. And I just want to point out to you, Mr. Plants this year, Mr. Plants, as you're going to see down at OCC this year, he's going to be involved in a lot more of the technology courses, where Mr. Ruiz is going to be headed more towards the I guess you could call them non-major, MET, ELT courses. So a lot of the, your English, your math, science, things like that. But Mr. Plants is going to be using his experience and his background to be able to assist students in more of those core technology classes this year. So we have some additional students, or excuse me, we have additional staff that are going to be on campus to help in those situations. So just a reminder, once again, you are an OCC student, which means that you are going to be expected to look and find information on your own here with OCC. And they do a great job using the Blackboard system, using their email, using signage, using web at their website, sunyocc.edu, as well as social media. So continue to use those resources as you navigate through to make sure you're up to date on everything as we move forward here. Okay, transportation. Transportation. So as I mentioned, students will be screened prior to being permitted to use district's transportation. Students will receive a colored wristband that allows them to be on campus. And students are not permitted to drive to campus on their own. This is a district superintendent decision. So the big thing here is that most of our school districts are continuing to follow the plans in which they are working with other districts to provide transportation. So that means that, once again, we will find that there are not just only students in your district that are on that bus, but you may find in certain that there are other students as well. Once again, when it comes to weather delays, I think you guys did a great job last year. We weren't hit as hard as the year before, but who knows what's going to happen this year. Typically, most of our delays happen in the months of January and February, so who knows what will be going on by then in terms of in-person classes. But once again, make sure you contact your transportation office. I hope that they provided you the best information as it relates to who's going down. Are they going to be delayed? What's the status? If not, I would encourage you to keep on reaching out, because really we're doing the same thing as you folks are. We're calling them and saying, what's the plan, right? So I'm calling Oswego and saying, what's the plan? What are you doing? What's going on with Hannibal? What's going on with Fulton? So I would sort of continue to follow, for those of you who did that, to make sure you knew what was going on, to call your transportation office, but also be aware of, Ms. Ruiz's text, right? And that's what I was mentioning before. You guys all kind of looked out for each other. So when you knew that something was happening, word got around pretty quickly amongst yourselves about what the plan was. So continue to do that and monitor here as we move forward on transportation. Any questions, Mr. Lupo? Once again, based on, before we jump at the schedules, we related to either the communication or the transportation part that we can answer?
Yep, just follow up regarding transportation. I think most students are aware of the various routes and how the districts combine to provide transportation for students heading up to OCC. So the question was, will busing be individual per district this year due to one person per seat rule for Fulton, as an example? But what we have planned here is that the busing will happen in unison as it did last year. So Fulton will be synced up with Hannibal as well as Oswego. They'll meet in Fulton and then head off to OCC from there for that route. And then the other districts towards the north, Sandy Creek will connect up with Pulaski, APW, Mexico will connect up with Phoenix, and Central Square will have its own transportation routes.
Yeah, and
yep.
I was just going to say, and followed up to that. So the answer to also in that question is asking about how is it possible that you're going to be able to meet the requirements of the transportation, you know, with that many students on a bus, right? So the districts are sending more than one bus. That's how. So in those situations where you can't fit with the requirements that they have by the guidelines that they're following, if you can't fit all those students on one bus, they're going to be sending two buses. And that's how they're taking care of that. Okay.
Other question, it's not pertaining to transportation, but to the student schedule in the high school class for phys ed. How will that be administered?
So let's go over the schedule points, and then we'll go ahead and move forward and answer questions about scheduling this year.
Okay.
So we talked about OCC's schedule. Once again, you students can access their schedule on WebAdvisor. You well know how to do that. So go ahead and you can access your schedule on that web portal. When you look at your class on WebAdvisor, it will say, if you look very carefully, it'll say HighFlex, which once again refers to that hybrid sort of situation, or it will refer to it as a remote or online. So be on the lookout when you look at your classes, what it says. If you have a question, take a photo of it, send it to Mr. Rees or one of us and say, what does this mean? So we can walk through it so you know exactly what kind of class that you are scheduled to be in. And as Mr. Lupa has mentioned, we will be contacting you this week, either through phone or through email, and letting you know what specific days, especially for those of you who have HighFlex, what specific days you are going to be at OCC. Ms. Preston, who's here, has worked extremely close with Ms. Metzgar to be able to make it so all students in one particular district, if possible, are only going down on one day as opposed to having different students from different, you know, one district coming one day and one going the other day. So we're trying to maximize it to allow a little bit less pressure on our transportation departments, as well as to make it safe for students as we look at making sure that they're not down there for no reason. We don't want a student down there for, you know, a 15 or excuse me, an hour class that could be done remotely in that situation. So we're looking at those situations to make sure that we're trying to limit numbers there. So as I mentioned, students enrolled in high school classes will participate in either hybrid or remote learning experiences. So you have 4 classes, government this year that are requirements. Government and econ are 0.5, so those are semester classes. So either you'll take government first semester or econ first semester, and then you'll switch for the second semester. You will take phys ed. Mr. Lupa, phys ed, is that a full credit, I believe, correct?
Half credit for the full year.
So half credit for the full year of phys ed. And then for MET students, you will be taking health. For those of you in the ELT program, your health is actually a dual course from a college course that you're taking. So that's why the MET kids have to take high school health, because their health credit is not a part of a dual credit, unlike the ELT kids. So those are the sort of 4 areas that high school classes will be conducted in. Last year, government and econ was obviously, without COVID, was held in person. Phys ed was held in person, and health was held in person with some students doing a sort of an online piece as well. This year, obviously, because of the situation, we want to keep it safe, obviously, for students, as well as taking a look at what days they're down at campus. The majority of those classes that you see right there will be done in a hybrid fashion or a remote situation. The final determination on that will be given to you here shortly when we put together your schedules and say, okay, this group is going to have a remote health class, this group is going to have a remote government class. Once again, when we give you the days that you need to be down at OCC, that information is using whatever schedule your high school classes are also attached to. So for example, if you know, if we tell you you only have to be down at campus Monday and Wednesday, that means that all of your high school courses and all of your college courses will be conducted with you only needing to be down at OCC on Monday and Wednesday. We're not going to add another thing to it just to handle high school courses. So we'll have that once again. We'll communicate that out to you this week about which days you will have class. I'll swing back to that question in a second. Cohort 2 students will not report to city facilities for educational experiences unless advised to do so. Job fairs, industry mentoring, industry challenges We're doing a lot of remote situations, obviously, this year. We're not going to be bringing kids together in any sort of congregated area for any of these experiences. But if they do happen and eventually things become improve, things become better, and in-person is allowed across the state, we would be expecting you folks, students, based on your schedules, we would be expecting you to come back to city to participate in those things, because those are extremely important as you make your way, even more important as you make your way towards wrapping up your high school experience into college. So right now, for example, industry mentoring is going to happen remotely. So you'll participate remotely. Job industry challenges are even our manufacturing day. You know, we're looking at options to make some of those same experiences. We don't want to get rid of them. We want them to occur in a different manner. So you'll be expected to continue to have your foot in PTECH in that little area as well. As I mentioned, the last two comments, Web Advisor to take a look at your schedule, and that phone call or that email home letting you know what day you're going to be expected at OCC. Will be coming here this week. Mr. Lupa, back to sort of any questions related to schedule or anything either Ms. Ruiz, Ms. Metzgar, Mr. Plant, or Mr. Lupa want to add regarding schedules?
It's Ms. Ruiz here. I'm not actually going to log in right now, but all of you guys should know how to log into Web Advisor. So I'm going to quickly share my screen with Saffron, but I'm not going to log into any account, just so students know where to go to.
Yeah, that's fine. She did this presentation last night for our cohort 3 kids, which I understand they've only had one summer experience with this. I'll be shocked, and do not tell me if any of you on here don't know how to log into Web Advisor. I don't want to know about it. I'm just going to plug my ears. You should all know at this point, but Ms. Ruiz is going to be very generous.
Can you allow me to share my screen?
I guess so. I can.
Thank you. You never know, just in case.
Let's see here.
Any if you just make me the host, or
I've got to stop sharing. Let me just put that over there.
There we go. All right, guys. If you just go to Google, you type in SUNY OCC. You click on here. I am a current student. On the left side, you're all familiar with Blackboard and Office 365 for email. You should be clicking on Web Advisor. Click on login, and it's going to be the same username you've been dealing with this entire year to get on Blackboard and Office 365 your email, and the same password. So your username is usually your first initial, period, middle initial, period, your last name, and some of you guys might have numbers. And then it'll take you to the Web Advisor screen. On the right side, under academic profile, I believe, you click on the word that says class schedule, and it will show your fall 2019 classes. If you click on a class, it will tell you whether it's high flex, real-time remote, or strictly online learning. So don't do it now because we have a bunch of information to give out right now, but that's something you definitely want to check eventually. And how do I get out of here? Oh, stop share. All right, that's it.
Go ahead. Somebody else was about to say something. I saw that there was a question about makeup courses. So some of you got incompletes last year because the lab portion, the professors really felt, and rightfully so, that you needed to have lab experiences with those classes before they could award credit. Those will occur at some point over the fall semester. The MET and the ELT departments have been outstanding to be able to recognize what you guys are sort of facing with transportation and other. So they're trying to come up with creative ways to be able to award that for you and give you those experiences so you have that under your belt as you move forward with your classes. So for those of you who receive incompletes currently, you still have incompletes. The credit hasn't been awarded yet, but we will wait to hear what they want to do in terms of when they're going to give you those experiences, and they'll obviously work around your schedules, obviously, to make sure that happens. So once we get the information about that and what they want to do, I think right now they're focusing on just getting this lifted off, and then they'll return to those incompletes for you to be able to handle and take care of those responsibilities and have credit awarded. Other questions, Mr. Lupa, as it relates to any of this?
Yeah, one question coming up regarding internet connections and things like that. So if any student is experiencing any difficulty with internet access, either Mr. Heffron, Ms. Preston, or myself will be calling home to each student before the end of this week. So if you can just note that to whoever calls you, we will work on a case-by-case basis with each student to understand what's going on with internet connection and support that student to be able to have full access. Obviously, most of the students, if not all, are going to have some format of an online course or a real-time remote type situation, along with the high flex options for these courses as well. So it will be essential to have that connection as well as a device, your Chromebook or a personal laptop, and we will work with you on a case-by-case basis for those. That's
And
it for right now.
Yep, and just to piggyback off of that too, I'm not sure, Ms. Preston, you might be able to answer this, but in cohort 2 situation, if you have, for example, let's say in the morning you have a in-person lab, but in the afternoon you had an English remote class. Well, you know, where do you log in, or where can you go to access that remote English class? There are going to be set up structured classrooms for students to go to that are not full of students, that have the proper capacities for students to go to be able to jump on their computers and access that remote class. So once again, if you had a situation where you have 2 classes in a day, one of them is in person, the other one's in remote, for those of you who are going to be already down there because you have to go to your in-person, instead of finding anywhere around, you know, campus to go, and they're going to be limited because of some things are closed, they're finding places for you to actually go to be able to jump in, sit down, get on and access your remote class and be able to participate. Remember, remote means live, which means you need to be there. They're going to take attendance, they're going to look around, and that's it, you know what I mean? So it's important that you find a quiet place, and OCC is going to have those places available for you to go to do that. Okay, so the last piece of this that I want to walk through is just a reminder of important dates. So on August 24th, which is coming up here in about a week, those of you who have classes that are obviously online based, remote based, even maybe in person, they are going to sort of be open for you to start looking around and taking a look at the syllabus and start exploring. August 24th is a launch date for all of those classes to be quote unquote live. So once again, that's when beginning August 24th, classes don't start to the following week, but beginning August 24th, you guys can go on and start taking a look and browsing around to see what things look like. And you guys know from last year during COVID, your teachers, your professors will email you questions and expect answers back. So by next week, I'd start fishing around a little bit on that Blackboard and start looking to see if there are any emails coming in from your professors that you can get going on and responding to. August 31st is the official first date of the fall semester. That's a Monday. September 7th, classes are closed due to Labor Day. November 24th is the final day of in-person classes. As I mentioned before, the final day that you will have in-person classes. Those classes will then go remote for the remainder of the year, but that will be the final day that any in-person classes will happen. And then finally, this fall semester, December the 12th, 2020 is the final day of the fall semester. I want to remind folks that this is for the fall semester. Obviously, there are many things that need to be observed and determined to what happens in spring. So I cannot tell you what things will look like in spring. OCC will make those decisions based on their organization. They will inform us. And as we get closer to January, we will have information and most likely hold another session here to bring everybody in to go over what the spring session looks like, if it is any different or changes are made based on what the experience looks like here in fall, okay? With that said, any of our OCC PTECH crew have anything else that they want to bring up before we open it up to any further questions and allow folks to be able to take off if they're good to go? Any other information from our PTECH or OCC staff? I think Ms. Metzgar, yep.
Yes, you are getting questions about book delivery. I'm gonna let you answer that one, but I want to stress something you just said, super important. log into your classes August 24th. Make sure you can navigate your Blackboard, your web advisor, call the help desk if you cannot. Make sure you're started early. That's why they're opening it up.
Yes, absolutely. I told you there's a theme going on here, right? So access and communication, right? That's the big theme here. So yeah, so I'll address that book question right now. For textbooks, we are picking up your textbooks this week. They are in. We will do what we did that all of you experienced last spring, where we set up ourselves in your home district's high school in our little vehicles, and you will stop in to pick those books up. Right now, we're looking at August the 27th. We will share that schedule with you as we finalize just a couple of things. We want to make sure we get all of our books and everything before we do that. But we are right now looking at August 27th. We'll send you an email, students, to your PTECH email account that gives you the time and the location. Well, locations will be the same thing. We're going to be at the high school parking lot, the front entrance parking lot. The only one Central Square is the one that throws people off. We're always by the flagpole, so look for the flagpole. That's the parking lot that we're in. But everybody else, yeah, that will be when we do. Now, if you're not available that day and you can get somebody else to pick them up, that would be awesome for you. If not, we have obviously Friday the 28th to be able to get them out. And last minute, obviously, we'll be running around, I'm sure, that weekend delivering books as well. But if you can, it would be extremely helpful for all Mr. Lupa's vehicle and my vehicle, if you could save us some miles and be able to come out on the 27th to pick up books. That would be great. And really, we can answer any questions that you guys have as well. You know, any last minute stuff you might be, you know, kind of going through your mind that you want to go through with us. We'll be available for you to access them too. Other questions, anything else, Mr. Lupa, that you see on your end that I can answer? If you did have a question and it wasn't answered, if you want to just repeat it, we'll stay on as long as we need to here to answer those questions. At this point, if people are good to go with the information, we will send you off, and we want to thank you once again for being here. And we really look forward to the work that you guys are going to be putting in. I can tell you that I've never been more proud of a group of students here than what happened last year in spring. In a very difficult situation where there wasn't a lot of planning and everything had to go last minute, we had kids step up left and right. So keep on going. I know it's inside of you guys. If you can handle that, you can really handle anything moving forward. So we look forward to continuing to work with you. All right. So we'll stay on and answer any questions. But at this point, folks, if you do want to leave, you can do so. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.